All right. Now, in our next session, we are going to have a discussion with Ed Amoroso. So, to give you a first quick introduction about Ed, or I should say, Dr. Ed Amoroso is the CEO of TAG Infosphere. He's also an NYU professor and a former chief security officer at AT&T. Ed started TAG Cyber in 2016 to democratize research and advisory services, and of course, to unleash his inner entrepreneur. Business Insider tabbed him as one of the country's 50 leaders who helped lead the cybersecurity industry. Well, that's an amazing portfolio, Edward. We are so glad to have you here.
Nice to see you, Vic.
So, Ed, so for the audience, there's so much we can ask and learn from you, from your years of experience in the industry. You're also an active professor at NYU, so I think it's an honor to have you with us today. But I know your time is precious, so I'll get straight to the point. So the first question that we wanted to ask you is, considering SMBs, they have limited budgets and, of course, very limited technical expertise. What do you think is the best way for SMBs to protect themselves from cyber threats?
It's a great question, Vic. And I would also add not just limited technical expertise, but the threat has grown so significantly from nation states and other groups, because these are automated attacks typically. So a lot of times when you're sweeping looking for a target, it doesn't matter whether you're small, medium, or large business. If you're exposed, you'll get hit. So sadly, everyone is kind of vulnerable now. It's not like I'm going to go after a big bank, but leave the little community bank alone. I wish we were back in those days. I mean, the obvious answer is you have to partner. You have to find someone who has the wherewithal in terms of infrastructure, in terms of capability, and really in terms of this real-time ability to track and monitor and mitigate threats. So that's really the only way. SMB trying to sort of keep up, to do it sort of on their own, to just, buy tools and try and scrap something together. Honestly, I'm not sure that ever worked. It might have worked a little bit better 20 years ago, but now I don't think that's feasible. So I'd almost put in the same category as, should an SMB open their own bank to store their money? No, they should probably work with a bank. So when you're dealing with cybersecurity, they need to find I come from the carrier industry, so obviously I think a CSP or ISP is the right partner, but it better be someone who's capable and can demonstrate the ability to keep up with modern threats.
You made a good point, because it's at the end of the day, you're finding the ideal partner so that who you can seamlessly work with. And of course, SMBs have, very unique requirements and needs. They don't have the technical expertise. They don't even have the time. These are small businesses who are just trying to, working hard to sometimes keep the lights turned on. So it's pretty challenging in those ways. But you also made this point with regards to, partners such as telcos. What are some of the traditional revenue streams from SMB customers? And what is the potential impact on these revenue from cybersecurity services when you talk about, let's say, CSPs or telecoms?
Well, SMBs love managed services. That's how they get through the week, right? It's outsource the desktop, outsource network. I mean, everything in sort of that IT and network category has been fair game and has been a good business for service providers. So whether you're a little small regional provider or a big, massive global telecom, the SMBs have been a really wonderful sort of target in terms of revenue. Now, what are the impact on cybersecurity? It could be positive or negative. The negative is if there's a bunch of attacks and you're not able to stop them, even if your customers are not relying on you or paying you for security, they're going to blame you. So you might as well do this. Like if you're an ISP or a CSP watching now, I don't think it's a matter of whether you do cybersecurity. You already are. But I think the opportunity is that if you do it properly, if you put real tooling in place and market it more aggressively and actively, then you not only will do a better job of security, but you make some money at this. And look, as I run an SMB, I completely concur that, you want your service provider to come to you and say, do you want me to help you in this area? And I would say that maybe 15, 20 years ago it would have been, I'm not sure, but I think most SMBs now are not only ready, but they are active and eager to get that help. So you have to be careful. If you're an MSP, you're a managed service provider, ISP, there's all these different designations. But if you're a service provider and you think you're not doing security, you're wrong. You you absolutely are, because if there's an attack, that will be something your customers will hold you accountable for. So it's better to be proactive than reactive here.
Very well said, Ed, and thanks for sharing that, because that's a wow. Most people don't think like that, and you're absolutely right. Whether you are in this business, whether you admit to it or not, and it's better that you do a good job in this industry as an MSP or an ISP or a CSP, as whatever term you want to call, because it's inevitable that whether you want to be dragged into this or you want to lead and support your client base, but that has a substantial impact. Now, continuing on this in this thought, why would SMBs trust telecom providers for their cybersecurity services? What are your thoughts on that?
I guess it matters which telecom you're talking about. I mean, it's an easy question for me. I've spent my entire adult life in telecom, so I'm going to say we're the most wonderful industry on the planet. But setting my bias aside, I mean, you already trust them, right? I mean, you use them for connectivity. So I remember one time, Vic, somebody saying, gee, why would anybody put all their data in the cloud? How do you trust the provider for that, as the cloud services were becoming popular? And myself at AT&T and Verizon, all these other, but we would always laugh and say, you already are putting your data in the cloud. Our networks have been virtual, big hunks of software for the last 30 years. So you've already been using the telecom for sensitive business communication and transport and network. You're already there. So I think it's just a minor leap to ask them to help deal with security. And the true litmus test here is, if you had a security event, let's say there's some traffic that's coming from some really awful sites and you're not filtering, you're not blocking, you're going to get blamed anyway. So there's this belief that your customers are going to expect that they should trust you to help them, and you should do it. So I think the question's almost moot, because you already are trusting your provider, and look, you read your terms and conditions in your contract. I mean, obviously, the ISP is going to have very clearly laid out operational procedures around what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they're viewing, what they're not viewing, what they're storing, what they're not storing. You'll have control over that. And look, ISPs go out of business tomorrow if they sell services that people don't like. The industry has evolved to develop a set of capabilities and offerings that are popular. That's how these companies get their revenue, by selling things that people like, not selling things that people don't like. So I have to make it clear, I am obviously biased. I mean, I have telecom, across my chest. I spent my life there. But I think that, the idea of whether you should trust is sort of moot, because you already do.
That's very well said. And sometimes, we need to be reminded then to be tell new things. And that's a fair point. And very convincing, though. Now, just to wrap this up, we all want to make sure that, is the revenue from cybersecurity services relevant for CSPs?
It seems like that would be an easy question, but it's complicated. I would think a few years ago, maybe not. It wasn't clear, because the take rate on things was lower, because we weren't quite sure what people wanted. I'll give you an example. When the iPhone first came out, there's a lot of bloatware. Do you remember, like, a lot of stuff that would be loaded on to do like AV on your mobile? Vic, nobody bought that stuff. It was just, it would sit and we would tap our chin and go, what is it that people want? Time has progressed, and I think it's a lot clearer what types of capabilities, family protection and URL, and the ability to make sure that you're not going to be attacked over a network. Those are things I know that people want and will pay for. So I think that this question of whether it's relevant to CSPs is maybe it's just, is there revenue? Of course, and I don't think there's a CSP on the planet that wouldn't like to be paid for things that they're already expected to do now. So I think for the business case, and I've written many of them through my career to add cybersecurity to networks, the business case has never been better from, say, a service provider perspective. And I think it'll continue to get better because with AI and more advancement of threat, I think everybody's going to need a good, strong partner with good automation and intelligent capability embedded in the network and at the edge and potentially at the endpoint to deal with the threat. So, yeah, I think the business cases right now are a lot better than they used to be. It used to be pretty flat. Now they're positive, and I think they're on their way to wildly positive.
That's a very good point, and Ned, I agree because you brought a very key insight here. Is about adoption. The numbers speak for themselves. So it's not about the $3 to $5 ARPU in general for a phone, or maybe 10 or two more, as we see in the industry for on the fixed side. But it's actually the adoption is a P times Q math. So if you're looking at 30, 40, in some cases over 50% adoption of your base, that's a substantial revenue on your bottom line. So that's a very good point. So not to keep you for long, well, our last question for you, Ed. Do you think the CSPs are equipped to effectively block cyber threats for their SMB customers?
Well, that's another sort of business case question. Most of them, I would say right now, do need a partner. They're probably not sufficiently equipped to just do it natively. Some things you kind of can do. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're trying to divert denial of service attacks. I mean, embedded in most, say, larger CSPs is the ability to use protocols like Border Gateway Protocol, BGP, or other to divert traffic. But what are you doing with it when you divert it? You need sort of a vendor partner to help you with the capability. And that's kind of similar for just about every aspect of active network security support for SMBs. I think that the CSPs are equipped in the sense that they have the right playing field in terms of the way they manage traffic, in terms of the way they curate their network. It's the right place to do it. But usually you will need some platform support and some partners from a commercial vendor. A lot is a good example that where you bring that in. Now that's where the business case comes in, right? You work through what is the take rate going to be? What can I expect in terms of revenue? You balance that with what you do today in terms of operations. And I don't see a big, massive shift in day-to-day operations, but you will have to make platform investments. And that's where you do the business case. And like I said, I think years ago it was a tougher business case. Again, having written them so many times. Today they're positive. Today, when you write the business case, it comes out positive. In my mind, we're in an era now as we enter 2025 where all business cases have to be positive. There's not going to be negative business cases. Remember when it was like, get customers, doesn't matter if you're making money. I don't think we live in that era now. We live in an era where, yes, I want to get customers, but it has to be profitable. It has to be something that generates a return. So that's a good story now for the service provider industry. So cybersecurity has become a place where SMBs need service providers. Service providers are well set up. There's good, solid partners in the commercial vendor arena to complement what they do. And when you sit and do the math, you sit and you add it all up and you come up with the number, it comes out positive. So it seems like a no-brainer to me that this is something everyone should be doing.
Wonderful. Well, Ed, I think I could continue for a long time in asking you questions. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon. So thank you once again. And now we'll move on to the next topic.